Betrayal can mean a lot of things. You can betray your loved one's trust. You can betray your wedding vows. You can even betray your own moral compass. But it is the truly depraved who can betray all three and simply go about their life like they absolutely did nothing wrong. I am afraid there are people like this all around us. Unfortunately, those who are unlucky enough to cross paths with these people, have our lives ruined because of it. My name is Jeff, and I met Christy at college. A mutual friend had set us up on a blind date. It seemed that the fates had brought us together. The two of us hit it off from the very first night together. Soon, there was a second date. Then a third and a fourth. Within a year, we had moved in together. After graduation, I asked Christy to marry me, and we got hitched while standing on a white sandy beach in Jamaica. Life for the both of us was very busy. I had just started working for a big engineering firm and Christy started her nursing career. Although we were very busy in our careers, we always made time for each other. Weekly date nights, one weekend a month taking a random road trip, and a big vacation every year. At least, until Christy got pregnant with our first child. A little girl named Dawn. Vacations and monthly road trips got replaced with family outings. Several years later, we had our second child. This time a son named Jason. To everyone else, we seemed happy. Even family members believed we had been destined to start a family together. But, like all good things, they can and will take a turn. For us, it was a trip to the hospital after a car accident. Christy had gotten hit by a semi with Dawn in the back seat. I got the call from the hospital at work and immediately left to be with my wife and daughter. First, I checked in on Christy, making sure she was alright before I headed up to pediatrics to check on Dawn. My daughter was also alright, just with a bit more cuts and bruises. This seemed a bit off to me and asked the nurse what result was being rechecked. The nurse replied that Dawn's blood type was being rechecked. A big red flag went up in my head, and I asked the nurse to step out of the room and talk to me. Upon further questioning, the nurse said that Dawn's blood type was B positive. Now, I am no medical person, but I sure do remember my blood type genetics. I know for a fact that I am O positive and that my wife is A positive. That means it is absolutely impossible for our daughter to have AB positive blood type. So, I allowed the rechecked and requested a copy of the results. With my heart pounding, I returned to Dawn and sat with her until she fell asleep. Just as I was about to head back down to my wife, the nurse came in and gave me a copy of all of Dawn's blood work. And sure enough, the recheck was B positive. I then asked why did the blood bank request a retype. The nurse told me that Christy had told the ER that she was A positive and that I was O positive when the ER thought they might have to take Dawn to surgery. I thanked her and headed downstairs. Over the course of the following week, I set several things into motion. First, I collected a sample of hair from both my daughter and son, and sent it off, along with a sample of my DNA, to be checked for paternity. I paid the rather large sum to have the testing expedited and had the results sent to my business address. I also consulted with an attorney about the hospital findings. After several hours of questions, he had enough to have paperwork drawn up and made ready to file. 7 days later, I received the test results. Opening that envelope was the hardest thing for me to do. Upon reading the results, the lab had determined that there was a 0% chance that I was the father to either of my kids. And, if that was not enough, it showed that Dawn and Jason did not share the same father. Needless to say, my world came crashing down around me. Not only had Christy been unfaithful, but apparently there were multiple guys. Allowing me to believe that Dawn and Jason were mine, was the cruelest thing of all. Christy hadn't just burned a bridge with me. Oh no, she had full-on nuked it. After regaining my senses, I immediately faxed over a copy of the paternity results to my attorney. Christy had returned to work and was starting her 3 12-hour shifts. So, I took a few days off from work and set about following my attorney's advice. First, I opened a new bank account and had my direct deposit redirected to the new account. Then, I pulled out half of all the money we had in our joint accounts and closed all our joint credit cards. I also got a small apartment close to work and started to move some of my clothes and personal items. The house was going to be a bit tricky. But my attorney told me that it would get worked out in the divorce. The hardest part was the kids. I loved them, but they were not mine. Legally, I would not be entitled to visitation since I was not the biological father. In fact, there was a good chance I would not see the kids again. And as much as that hurt, I could not ignore the hurt and betrayal Christy reaped upon me. So, on the day Christy was due to finish up her shifts, I asked Christy's mother to take the kids because I had a surprise in store for Christy. Once she got home, she knew something was wrong because I was sitting in my recliner holding a bunch of papers in one hand and a glass of bourbon in the other. She asked me what was wrong. I had just enough alcohol in me to say, "Who are they, Christy? Who did you sleep with behind my back? Who are the fathers of Dawn and Jason?" I got up and handed her the lab results proving I was not the kid's father. She didn't even try to deny it. In fact, she just looked at me and replied, "I'm really not sure." That was all I heard. She kept talking, but I was no longer listening. Christy showed zero remorse. In the span of 3 weeks, I had lost my wife, my kids, and the last 15 years of my life. She wasn't just heartless, Christy was pathologic. I was going to miss the kids, but I had to get as far away from Christy as possible. Over the next few months, Christy and I only communicated via our attorneys. However, I did get a surprise at work. Christy's parents had shown up at my work and requested a sit-down lunch. I know I should not have agreed, but I wanted to hear how the kids were handling everything. Christy's parents wasted no time. Her mother told me the story that they got was that I had cheated on Christy and that I left her and the kids for another woman. I actually laughed out loud. Knowing that this was no laughing matter, I apologized and explained what actually happened. Both her parents were in complete disbelief that their daughter could do something so horrible. However, I had a copy of the paternity test results saved to my phone. So, I pulled up the document, handed them my phone and ordered another drink. By the end of lunch, Christy's parents were so mad at their own daughter I thought her dad was going to stroke out right there in the restaurant. They thanked me for telling them the truth and left. I finished my drink and was going to head home when I got a call from my attorney. He said that the divorce was finalized that morning and it was finished. He also said that Christy had filed a petition with the court to terminate her parental rights. Never in my life did I think that Christy was such a cold-hearted woman. I thanked him and immediately called Christy's parents to let them know what my attorney told me. I also said that if they decide to seek official guardianship of the kids, I would be interested in helping out. The fact was I still loved them, even though they were not mine, and it was most definitely not the kids' fault that their mother was a pathological narcissist. Did I make the right choices? What could I have done better? Echo threads.